It was me and little Andy playing Sigmar all day. It was me and Andy. We didn't want to call it a day. It was me and Andy doing the rent show. It was me and Andy. We didn't want it to snow.
Yar matey indeed.
Hello, Warhammer fans.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your one-stop shop for all things Age of Sigmar. Just non-stop, wall-to-wall AOS goodness. It's the Andy and Rem show, yet again. I don't know what episode number this is we're up to now, but it's quite a few now. I've been going for quite a few months, ever growing, expanding our little universe of viewers that we've got going on here. So speaking of the viewers, before we delve into the wonderful new releases and rumours for this week, let's look at who we've got in the chat. We've got TFF Baz, who turned up 5 hours before the show started. So that is some serious commitment for you. So they deserve a special shout out. We've got Lady Phoenix and Danny Ashby, Ladies Night in here as always. We've got Remy Tremblay. We've got Sefi Sogaku, finally able to watch it live apparently. YouTube Newbie, the Long Paragraph Legend, Gloom Dready Gaming. We've got, now, I've been saying hedgemongery, but he says that that's not the way to pronounce it. So I'm going to say that it's Hegemon Gary for tonight, and we'll see if that's right. We've got Magnus Edenmere, the Noble Knight. We've got Craig Shannon. We've got Legion of One. We've got Ronnie Dodd. We've got Rasmus7814. We've got Barrett Muscleman. That's a wrestler name if ever I heard one. We've got Gorgasaur. We've got Eric Coins, or Eric's Coins, first-time viewer. Very happy to have you. We've got, who else have we got here? People repeat commenting. We've got Stu Gibson. I think that's pretty much everyone that's commented so far. So welcome, all of you. We're going to embrace you into our hearts and hopefully shine a bit of Sigmar's light upon you. There's plenty to go around. He is omnipresent. Good old Sigmar up there in the clouds, shining down his light generously, bestowing it upon us. And we're mere mirrors, or we're kind of like, we're solar panels on the wargaming community. We're absorbing his light and then empowering the rest of you. Isn't that right, Mr. Rem?
Possibly for you. For me, I'm more of a Medusa mirror or a Dark Elf Gorgon mirror. When you stare back at me, you know, may not like what you see.
Now, I do have a question about your pirate look tonight. Is it normal for pirates to wear 2 eye patches?
Do you know what? I forgot my glasses today. I left them at work. So I've got my tinted prescription lenses instead. I think they kind of work quite well with this.
You would think that the double eye patch, it would hinder your effect as a pirate.
Well, I'm a sonic pirate, so I use psychic weapons.
Well, never heard one of those before, but let's just assume it exists. So first things first, there's a couple of wildly inappropriate comments right there. So instead of reading those, let's look at the new releases, shall we? So back to the old screen share. There we go. So there we've got the beautiful logo for tonight's show. And that gives you some clue about the new releases. Some guy with a horn. He doesn't know quite which part of his face to stick it into. There he is. And look, if you look, you can actually see that he's got a piece of skin around his chin there.
Ooh.
So that confirms once and for all that they are human inside that, unless he just has a flesh chin strapped onto the outside of his armor.
I've always said, Andy, that these Sigmarines would look better with human heads that you can actually see hair and faces and noses. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, you can't see a nose, but you can see a chin. It's kind of Judge Dredd looking, isn't it, with just a jaw hanging out, or RoboCop.
I do like the dashing plume above the headdress.
Yeah, quite a few of them have those, don't they?
Yeah, I like that.
Not quite hair, though, is it? If they do grow hair like that, I would be surprised.
Yeah,
But really, what is he doing with it?
it's an impressive model. Is it a telescope he's holding? Or is it
Well, apparently it's a horn, but he's holding it closer to his eye than he is to his mouth.
What does this special horn incur upon the...
Well, shall we look at the rules right now and see what it does?
Yeah, let's do that.
Firing up the PDF. So, onwards to glory. You can signal a call to arms with this model's battle horn. So, any unit within 10 inches can charge this turn, even if they retreated or ran in the movement phase. That's quite tasty. So you could escape from one combat and charge into another. Thunder Blast. In your shooting phase, he can sound a thunder blast with his battle horn, shaking buildings to their foundations, blah, 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 blah. Pick a terrain feature within 15 inches and roll a dice. And each unit within that many inches of the terrain suffer D3 mortal wounds. So if the enemy are just hanging out in the woods or in some ruins and you thunder blast them with your battle horn, then falling masonry on the head, basically.
Tell you what that is. That's an anti-Beastman model, that is. You know, it's kind of like his first ability, the Onwards to Glory. That's kind of like, reminds me of Battle Dodgems, where you're just bumping off one enemy and into another. It's quite, that could be good fun, that one. And the other one, the other ability, the Thunder, what is it? Thunderhorn?
Thunder Blast.
Thunder Blast. I think Thunder Blast could eke out those Beastmen Ungor raiders hiding in the woods. Could definitely thin them guys out and make them run away.
With it being D3 mortal wounds, I think this would be great if there's a wizard who's trying to get some kind of benefit from sitting next to a terrain piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing mortal wounds on a wizard is going to knock him right down, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Within 15 inches, you don't have to get that close. I think he's pretty tasty. 4+ save, 5 wounds, pretty standard for a character.
Definitely one to target at if you're got some shooting in your army. That's one guy that you probably want to kill quite quickly.
I have a feeling people are going to try to model it so that the horn is actually pointing somewhere near his mouth. Because really, you can't blow a horn with your cheekbone.
No, perhaps a French horn that was curled up would have been more look better on that.
Maybe the Sigmarites do need some curved battle horns. So, speaking of these little command group characters, here's another one. This one's the Knight Vexillor, or the Vexillor.
What
do you think of this one?
Standard bearer, really, isn't it? Or is it?
It is, but he does have a skull on his base, though. So that's a point in his favour. I don't like this one quite so much as the horn. What do you think?
Yeah, again, it's the face for me that lets it down. It looks a bit like those, you know, those what they're called, those undead space in 40k.
Oh, Necrons.
Yeah, it looks a bit Necron, but it's golden. You know, the face.
Yeah, I think they do lose a little bit of character, don't they, when every single one's just got exactly the same face.
You know, these are great models. Can't deny it. They are good. Are they good enough for me to add to my huge collection of unpainted models? No.
We'll get to the value of these models in a minute, but let's look at the rules for this guy now.
Right.
See what he brings to the table. I imagine it's something quite potent. For £18, you would expect it. So let's see. You can re-roll charges for Stormcast Eternal units that are within 12 inches of him, which is quite good. You don't want to be failing those charges. Once per battle, he can call down a comet in your hero phase, pick a point on the battlefield within 24 inches, and roll 2 dice, add them together. Each unit within that many inches at that point suffers D3 mortal wounds. So it's like an even more powerful version of the Battle Horn Blast, isn't it? Without needing a terrain feature. You just bring it down anywhere. Anyone within that many inches takes D3 mortal wounds. So plonk that in the middle of the enemy battle line. You can do some serious pain, aren't you?
Yeah.
Pennant.
What, automatically 3 wounds?
D3 mortal wounds.
What, to every unit?
Yep, within 2d6 inches of that 24-inch point.
Oh man, that sucks. So you could literally have that guy and the guy with the horn working in tandem, just that would kill a wizard. Wizards usually have about 5 or 6 wounds, don't they?
Yeah, the smaller characters always seem to have about 5 now. This guy's got an even better save than the Horn Master. He's got 3+ and a higher bravery as well, which makes sense if he's carrying the banner that's supposed to lead them to victory, but he's got more abilities. Once per battle, he can summon a mighty hurricane in the hero phase, pick a Stormcast Eternal unit in your army and remove it from play, then set it up anywhere more than 3 inches from the enemy. It can't move in the following movement phase. After setting up the unit, roll a dice for each enemy within 6 inches. On the result of a 4+, it is blasted and suffers D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So you can drop a unit much closer to the enemy than you normally could. And you can potentially do mortal wounds to everyone nearby as well. They are only once per game abilities, though, both of those. So that reins it in a little bit.
These new models and new abilities, I think, I don't know, I could be wrong, but it's like they've been playtesting and looking at people's games. They've probably realised that the Stormcast Eternals as a faction are quite slow moving. So they've got
potentially if they're not called down from the heavens, then they are quite slow. Yeah.
You see, even if they're called down, they can't move on that turn. So
they can't move, but they can probably charge.
Yeah.
So that is, again, very potent. But the question is, are these things worth £18? Because if you look at it, they're really just standard Stormcast with a banner and a horn. And what would you have previously paid for those? You would have got them as part of a box set, wouldn't you, of 5 men for, let's say, £30. And you would have had them as spare parts. But now, their new technique is to give you the musician and the standard bearer separately for £15 and £18 each.
Yeah, I think £18 for both. That's fair. Or £15 for both. Let's meet in the middle. £16 for both.
Yeah, it's compared to some of the other characters out there, it's not obscenely priced. It's just, they are just a standard bearer and a musician. That's the only model difference. If you look at, let's say, the dwarves with Belagar Ironhammer on his Oathstone, he's vastly different from all the other dwarves in appearance. So buying him separately makes sense. But with these guys, I don't see why they aren't just extra parts in the box of Liberators or something.
Yeah.
But they are quite good in the game, though.
Yeah, nice looking models, good in the game. Let's look at the alternative paint jobs there, Andy. There's, I think, is there a blue one there?
That's just his back.
Oh.
There's no real alternative paint job. We can see him in full 360 motion, though. Look at that.
Right, nice. How have you got on with your painting your... have you painted all your Stormcast that you've got?
I've painted the 6 that I've got. I should be getting some more very soon, though.
What do you think of them? Do you enjoy painting them?
Yeah, I think they're really easy to make look good, I think is the best way of putting it. It's not difficult to put a decent paint job on them.
Right.
Because a lot of the detail is already there.
Yeah.
And the detail isn't there. For example, highlighting. There are a lot of edges and points that you can just put in a slightly different colour. So I found them very easy. They're not huge flat surfaces that you need to decorate with freehand or anything like that.
So if you're just getting into the game, you know, you bought the box set, I suppose it's kind of like it's a good option for you as a starter painter, maybe, to paint these guys. They're not too much of a learning curve, I suppose.
Yeah, they're definitely, as far as painting skill required, they're definitely the Space Marines of fantasy now.
But when you look at the Blood Warriors, I think they're hard to paint. I've painted 3 of them, and I'm quite a slow painter. But they're difficult. There's lots of little nooks and crannies, and getting the edge highlights on them, I found it really tricky.
What do you think of these mega bundles?
Let's have a look.
The Vengeance of Azirheim.
Is that everything?
£494. Let's see if there's anything in there that you don't get. I think you get one of each box set at least. 4 boxes of Liberators. 2 what are they called again? The Archers. I can't remember.
Do you know what, Andy?
Prosecutors.
There's never been a faction in Warhammer Fantasy Battle at all that you constantly forget the names of the units as much as the Stormcast? I mean, I don't know. Prosecutors, Decimators, Liberators, Masturbators. I don't know. There's lots.
The names aren't descriptive enough.
No, they don't roll off the tongue, really, do they?
No, I think really you just have to learn them. It's not very intuitive. You don't hear that word and think, oh, that must be a guy with a hammer. When you hear Liberator, that doesn't immediately click in your brain.
No, it'd be better if, like, maybe they're called the Hammers of Sigmar. That'd be easy to remember because they're holding hammers, right?
Something like that, definitely. But the problem I see with these bundles, it seems like you'd be better off buying 2 or 3 of the starter boxes.
Yeah.
Getting all those parts. You've already built up most of the army then. You've got all the Liberators done. You've got some of the characters. You've got your Prosecutors. And the extra guys, you would only need to buy maybe a box or 2 of the guys with the big hammers or the bows, and then use spare parts to convert some of the others. That guy can be made out of Prosecutors, I'm pretty sure. I'm not too keen on the bundles.
Well, you know, when you see the photographs of the bundles, you really notice the copy and paste, don't you? The copy and paste and stuff.
Yeah, you do. Let's have a look at the Stormcast Eternal Warrior Chamber Command.
Oh, that's nice.
Where you get all the characters for only £126 for 7 models.
But then you buy that and you've got the box set, and then you're good, aren't you? Right? You got the stock.
Well, you better be good after spending that much. I mean, could you even field all those in one go? You'd probably struggle, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so how does that work, fielding these? Are these all separate war scrolls?
Yep, all of them.
Right.
Apart from the Griffhound comes with that guy.
So that's 6 war scrolls. And how many war scrolls would you say your average game has? Maybe 8?
Maybe. I don't see how you could field all these unless you're playing a really huge game. But if somebody just wants all these characters and they don't want to make any particular saving, they just want to save themselves on 5 clicks, there you go. Yeah. There's the bundle for you.
I think, and if they're going to do these bundles, there needs to be a saving. Like, that saving could be, I don't know, all that for £100 instead of £126. Maybe they'd shift more.
Well, I don't know.
You know, but look, I mean, we can whinge and moan about Games Workshop prices, right? But, you know, I investigate a lot of other miniature companies, and model for model, Games Workshop could even be slightly cheaper than some of the companies I've been looking at.
In some cases, they certainly are. But traditionally, you've needed a lot more of GW models, haven't you, to be able to field an army?
This is true. I mean, you might say Kings of War stuff is a bit cheaper, but then I could come back with, well, the quality of Games Workshop's better. We've already featured Mears Miniatures models, and I'm so tempted to get some of them, but the price is so much, £33 for 5 infantry models, you know, with them. It's a lot.
Right. Before we go on to the leaks and the rumours, let's have a look what the audience have been saying about these releases. So YouTube Newbie says, I'm law. Yep, he does look a bit like the law with his helmet with just the chin sticking out. Stu Gibson said he looked better with no helmet at all. It would be nice to see 1 or 2 of them without a helmet. It depends which way you're looking at it. If you're looking at them as these mysterious non-human characters, that I can understand them all having helmets. But they've got a visible chin, so that's not what they're going for. If you're going to tell us really clearly that they're human, why not show a face or 2? They've removed any ambiguity over whether they're humans or not.
YouTube Newbie says £50 for the one floating in the air. It's unforgivable. That's a good word to use, isn't it?
We've had a couple more audience members join us. We've had the legendary Terrain Tutor drop in.
Hey, how you doing, man?
He commented on my orange. Now, I don't know if the audience have noticed, but I've actually cranked up the colour settings on my webcam, so the orange should be extra vibrant from now on. If anyone's noticed that, let me know. If you think the colours were previously a bit drab, and now they're just burning holes into your retinas, then let me know. That's what I'm going for.
Fluorescent, Andy.
Let's see what everyone else is saying. We've got Sethisagaku. No idea how I'm supposed to be pronouncing that. Remember back in 5th edition era when you got a full command group blister pack for £3 to £4? Why, yes, I do remember that because I bought a lot of dwarves during that era. I remember Slayers. Okay, Mr. Rem has found some handy little hangout tools by the sounds of it. So I remember buying dwarves, Slayers, you would get a pack. I think there was probably 3 of them in there for £5, and then in the command group you would get a musician and a standard bearer for £5, and then you could get a big beefy one like a demon slayer for about the same price. So they were metal as well, more expensive material. Times do change though. Yeah, I get the feeling you're going to be playing that one a lot over the next months and years.
King, baby. I remember those blister packs. I love those. You know, you got musician, standard, a hero, and a sort of a generally looking character for about £4 or £5, right? I got some wood elf ones of those. Yeah, there's still some knocking about on eBay, but you're looking at maybe £20, £25 now.
The prices do skyrocket once something goes off the web store. Let's have a look. Yeah, people complaining that the Stormcast are overpriced. Yep, there are conversions to be done though, I think. Find the boxes that have spare parts and just go nuts. Let's see. YouTube newbie, not all Space Marines are plain. Deathwing and Blood Angels are very ornate and fancy. To an extent, as in that they have a couple of feathers dangling off them or a drop of blood here and there, but for the most part, you know a Space Marine when you see it, don't you? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Dudes with armor with different weapons and very little character. Yep, you can do something good with that though, like what I'm doing with mine. I think it's going to look quite tasty. Then going to look rather sinister, like they don't have any of their humanity left. It's all been squeezed out of them by just constantly being regurgitated by Sigmar and put down into a new realm, and then he's forgotten about them a little bit and they get lost somewhere. They start to lose even more of their humanity. They forget why they're there in the first place, and they're really quite dark. They're not chaos. It's a little too early for Chaos Stormcast, I think.
Yeah, don't rule that out though, Andy.
We shall see. Oliver Charles says the prices are reasonable in the UK. In Australia, the banner guy is $50 and the musician is $42.
Wow.
Which, that's the problem with Australia. Even when you convert the currency, it still costs more over there than it does everywhere else.
Yeah, isn't the key to it just to buy stuff on eBay, right? If you're in Australia.
I don't know whether there are some kind of restrictions on that as well. I'm sure the postage would cripple you then, wouldn't it?
Mm.
It's their problem for living on a big island on the other side of the world. It's their own fault. Let's see what else we've got in here. We've got YouTube newbie. When you look at some of their models, yeah, that's the one you talked about. The floating guy for £50, definitely too much, considering he's no bigger than a regular Stormcast. He just has swirly nonsense floating around him. YouTube newbie, is Ren wearing a hat? Yes, he is. Well done. That's very observant that you noticed there. People praising very highly the very vibrant orange that I've got going on here. Thank you very much. That's the look I'm going for. A couple of people complaining that their eyeballs are being scarred though. But I think that's a small price to pay, because most people's eyeballs can cope with it. I've been breaking you in gently over the last few weeks. The orange has been there, but it's not been quite as bright. And then this time I've cranked it up, so you should have built up some resistance, so you won't quite be burned by it. Right, so moving on to the leaks.
Oh, my favourite bit.
Oh, your favourite part of the show, is it?
Yeah, man.
This is where all the juicy stuff comes in. Right. Wrap your eyeballs around this then.
This is great. I've not seen this stuff yet. All right, what we got here?
The
Bloodbound Warhordes.
Yep. The ubiquitous foreign white dwarf cover. We get it every week. It's the first one to come out because security measures must be low in various other countries. So this one, you can see the new Chaos models on there. So these seem to be the equivalent of some of the Stormcast characters we've been getting. And you can see one of them's got a flaming hammer of some kind that's on a chain.
Yeah,
And the other guy's looking very scrawny
yeah,
with a huge shin.
yeah. He looks like he needs a meal.
He does. But we can see some more detail on those bad boys right here.
All right.
There's the flaming hammer, which
Yeah,
is swinging around. It's very reminiscent of those other chaos units, those big, really beefy, muscular guys that have the hammers on chains, the
yeah.
ones that came out in the end times.
Did they have blood in their names?
That is quite a safe bet, I think.
They're blood wielders, blood chain warriors. I don't know.
Yeah, but these guys, though, there's no blood in sight. It's Slaughter Priest and Skull Grinder.
Ooh, slaughter priest. And does that mean he's got some spells up his sleeve?
Anyone who can translate this language, what do you reckon that is?
French.
French, is it? Yeah, actually, yeah. Just spotted a couple of French words in there. I would imagine he's going to give them some kind of buff, being a priest. But then again, if he's a priest of KHORNE, what would a priest of KHORNE actually do? He's not going to heal you, is he?
Maybe you can make it rain blood.
I'm not sure what benefit that would have on the battlefield.
No, maybe it's like acidic blood. Rains down.
I think that would actually harm his own forces more than Stormcast, though, because of the difference in armor.
Now, Andy, you'll know this, right? The guy on the right wielding that hammer, right? That pose is almost identical to the dwarf model King Ulrich on Shield Bearers.
Yes, it is, actually.
You know, his legs are different, but he's got the same pose, swinging that hammer around.
I don't really like his helmet. I think some of these have gone a little too Chaos Space Marine-y, some of these helmets. I think this is one of them.
That's the thing, you know, the personality of a model is all in the face for me.
Now, is anyone fluent in French in this hangout?
Slaughter priest.
Barbet dominant se perd de la tête et des épaules. Un slaughter priest est une icône vivante du dieu du sang. That's as good as it's going to get, folks. We can see his
stats don't look great, really. 3 attacks, 4+3+. Well, you're going to get 1 through at least, maybe 2. All right, you'll deal 2 wounds.
He's not going to be about attacking, though, is he?
Okay.
I mean, he's not bad with 3 attacks with 2 damage each, but 6 wounds, so a little more survivable than some of the other characters. And I would imagine that these powers here, if anyone speaks French, let us know what they mean. In fact, let's try and work it out, shall we? Enemy within 16 inches, D6, blessures mortelles must be mortal wounds, mustn't it?
Yes.
So anyone within 16 inches takes D6 mortal wounds. Okay, that's probably one of the blessings he can put down. And this one, let's see if we can work this one out. Enemy unit within 16 inches, plus 3 inches. This is difficult. No, if it's not mortal wounds, I have no idea. It sounds like it's something to do with phase de mouvement. That doesn't take too much imagination, does it? It's got to be the movement phase. So it looks like it's going to hinder them a little bit in the movement phase. And there's another D3 mortal wounds there. That's quite a common theme, isn't it, with these characters? They can either dish out D3 mortal wounds, or they can cause some kind of mortal wound effect to go on. So there's him. And I'll let you check on the old video comments to see if anyone speaks French in there while I'm going through this guy. So he's only got 5 wounds, but he has a better save. He can do more damage with each hit, but he's only got 2 attacks. And let's have a look. His rule's slightly shorter, so we might be able to work these ones out. Let's see. I think he boosts the bravery, or enemy or KHORNE units nearby can use his bravery if they're within 6 inches. I'm going to say that's it. And this one, mortal KHORNE units within 8 inches of him. I don't know. Anyone who wants to tell us what that one means, go ahead.
Look at that. 2+ to wound, is it? 2+ to wound?
Yep. Only 2 attacks, though. 3 damage each.
Ooh, 3. That is really sweet, man.
Yeah, so it's really all about the abilities with these guys, though, isn't it? You can't be looking too much at the main stats. As far as models go, apart from the helmet, I like this guy. I think with a bit of a head swap, he could look really good. Maybe
Yeah,
a bear head would look better on him, wouldn't it?
yeah. I think you can definitely convert that if that comes out and it ends up being really expensive. You could definitely convert that easily. With one of the other models out there, one of the Blood Warriors maybe. Just put a hammer on the end of his weapon, make it a big one.
Yeah, if I was into the KHORNE guys at all, I think I'd definitely get this guy. Not so keen on the shriveled guy there.
I like
Not too keen at all. I mean, maybe it's just the angle of the picture or something, but he looks really, really skinny apart from he's got one big bicep there and a really huge leg. That's got to be the angle, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's just missing a plume, isn't he? Or a big horn coming out his head, just to give a bit of more balance to the head part of the model.
Yeah, if he's a priest, he needs something sticking out of his back with skulls on it, maybe. Because he's only standing on 2 skulls, and there might be another one down there. But for the slaughter priest of KHORNE, a skull embedded in his chest, okay, I'll give you that one. But I think he needs a few more, to be honest. So, yes, they're okay. Nothing ridiculously impressive. This guy's quite cool with a different head. So, moving on. Let's see what the audience have made of those models, shall we? Gorgosaur Fantasy Warriors had the KHORNE helmets before they were cool. They certainly did. Chaos Warriors have always had helmets in that vein. I think that one, though, borders a little bit on the KHORNE Berserkery. I know the whole lot of them give off that very KHORNE Berserker-like vibe anyway. But I think that one's just a little bit too clean, not jagged enough around the edges for my liking. Let's see. Gloomdready Gaming. I had a skull grinder once. Broke when I used it to grind my coffee beans. That's not really a very powerful skull grinder, is it, if coffee beans are going to break it? You know what this reminds me of, actually? There was an episode of Storyteller. You familiar with that?
I'm a storyteller, and my story must be told.
It did not go anything like that. It was very sinister, and it had puppets.
In Germany, I'm Joseph, and in England, I am John.
Not quite. But there was a guy who was bowling. It was like playing Skittles kind of thing. And they were using skulls as a bowling ball. And he got out some kind of polishing device and put the skull in it and kind of he started grinding it to smooth off the skull so he could bowl it more effectively. And it reminded me of that skull grinder. It was a classic episode. I wonder if we should talk about that in our discussion of fantasy history, because it's quite fantasy-like. It has griffins and all that kind of thing in it.
Gloomdready Gaming has also commented on your composure, Andy. He's saying you're one of the most composed people he's ever met, keeping a straight face no matter what silliness is going on behind him.
There isn't usually a lot of silliness going on behind me because it's just nothing but green. But alongside me quite often, because we do have Mr. Rem here, who is something of, let's just say he has a bit of a reputation in the music industry as a bit of a volatile character. If you haven't sorted out his M&Ms into colours and put them into different bowls, you're going to get in trouble, honestly.
It's taken half an hour, but I've got a smile at you, Andy, finally.
Okay, so after I've finished just checking through these comments to see if anyone... Yeah, people commenting that there's no blood in the names of them. I feel like they should have staggered the no blood releases, really, shouldn't they?
Yeah, we should definitely do that competition. Or maybe a different one. I did it to Pezapoo, didn't I? You had 1 minute to say all the models with blood in their title you could possibly think of. I think we should. I should try one with you, Andy. It's mine. It's got any model with skull in the title. Any one fancy model with skull. And I'm going to put you on the spot here. It's going to be difficult. And I'm going to give you 1 minute. All right. Any Games Workshop model with the word skull in its name. And your minute starts from now.
Skull grinder, skull crusher, skull taker, skull cannon,
Very good.
skull. I don't know if there are that many. Is there a skull basher?
30 seconds.
Skull. Maybe there might be some orc or characters like that have skull in their name, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Skull Buster.
Well, we've just been looking at one skull thing, haven't we?
I used that one already. Skull grinder. Skull seeker. Skull finder. Skull
Time's
cutter.
up. I think you did really well, Andy. You've got 4.
I'm not sure how many there are. I think maybe it just seems like there are a lot because we see skulls visually, so it all kind of blurs into one.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got lots of bloods. We've got a fair few skulls.
There are quite a lot. So, let me just see here. Cephis Sugoku is going to tell us how to pronounce that. He says, while I remember, I was watching the last episode of the show last night, and my ever so slight Brummie accent became heavily amplified after listening to Rem, and it's happening again.
What has he done again?
I don't know what he's getting at exactly there. Gorgasaur, do you not remember the old plastic warriors with the bunny ears from Warhammer Quest? Yep,
Yeah.
They were cool. They were more like horns, though, weren't they?
Oh, he's forgot a few. Screaming skull catapults.
Ah, yes. Yep, that is
Skull
one.
Smasher?
Lord of Skulls. I'm not going to count that because that's 40k. I think I definitely said Skull Cannon.
You said Skull Cannon, you said Skull Taker. The Temple of Skulls.
Does that exist?
Throne of Skulls?
I don't know if there is a Throne of Skulls.
No.
And there isn't a Casket of Skulls because that would be the Casket of Souls, which just happens to have a lot of skulls on it. So that would be a much better name.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a big, bad, Khorne warrior thing, and he's going to be sat on a big throne of skulls at some point.
You would think so, wouldn't you? There should be a skull throne, at least. And if you're not going to put it on wheels, have people carrying it. You know, like the Chaos War Shrine.
Yeah.
Or the dwarf, the High King, on his throne. Someone carrying it like that. And maybe someone behind it adding skulls to it to make it taller constantly. I was disappointed that we didn't get the skull pyramid, though, when they brought out all that skull terrain. That's the one thing I was really looking forward to. But unfortunately, no. And they could make it modular as well, so you could keep making it taller and taller just by including more side pieces. I would love that. If I could make a really big skull pyramid with steps on it, like an Aztec kind of pyramid, I'd go for that. That would be quite fun.
Comment about my accent, and I've worked in Manchester for a few years. I worked for some Manchester bands and lived up there, up in near Stockport. And because I live in Leicester, I've kind of gone in the middle between Leicester and Manchester with my accent.
It's a bit all over the place, your accent, isn't it?
It sounds a bit Brummie now, but yeah, I was brought up in Reading, and then Northampton, and then Leicester.
There's definitely some southern influence because you would say, for example, Bath instead of Bath, wouldn't you?
I would. I'd say grass instead of grass, and I'd say vase instead of vase.
That's very, very very southern hints in the old accent there.
It's like from Highlander, where he goes, "Where are you from?" and he goes, "Lots of different places."
That's the best way to explain an accent that isn't quite nailed down, isn't it? So, what we're going to do now, we're going to go on a nice little voyage down memory lane, because pretty much everybody in the chat is into fantasy in some form or other. If you're not, what the hell are you doing here? No idea. So, what I did was I went onto the old Sanctuary of Sigmar Facebook group, one of the many Age of Sigmar Facebook groups that you should be frequenting, and I asked people to give us theirs, and we're going to talk about them a little bit right now. So, let's see what people were saying, if I can even get the comments to load on this post. Just going to refresh that page very quickly. but we did get quite a few responses, more than we got for last week's question, it has to be said. So here we go. Right. We have Hooves of Doom on Facebook said that his earliest memories of fantasy settings would revolve around Tolkien, Willow, and childhood cartoons like He-Man. Now, yeah, it's easy to discount something like He-Man when you're thinking about fantasy setting, but it is very fantasy-like, isn't it? I think it's just because people wouldn't necessarily take it seriously, because it was really just a toy advertising campaign, really, wasn't it? All the cartoons back then. How does your age coincide with cartoons like He-Man, Mr. Rem?
Of course it does. And I remember the 1970s cartoon version of Lord of the Rings. And they mixed the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, and it ends with Gandalf saving everyone at the battle at the towers, you know. And they didn't get enough funding to complete it. And of course, 20 years went by or more until they actually made the movie version with Peter Jackson. But I remember as a young lad watching that Lord of the Rings, and it was one of the first films, first cartoon movies to use actual human animation in the action. And the baddies, the orcs, were sort of humans, and they were drawn over to look even more evil, whereas the heroes like Frodo and Bilbo were very cartoonized. So
they used very strange animation techniques on that, didn't they?
Yeah, it was good as a kid. I loved that. I mean, are we going to go into our influences, or are we going to wait for a bit?
Well, let's look at what a couple of other people have said first, and then we'll delve into our own. Now, a few people said Willow, but I'm not entirely sure what that is. They say it's a film.
Willow. How can you not have seen Willow, Andy? It's wicked, man. It's Val Kilmer, and you know, the guy that plays. He's in Life Is Short. He's a dwarf actor. He's in loads of stuff. Can't remember his name, but that was his big breakthrough movie. And it's brilliant, sword and sorcery. It lifts a lot from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, wicked film. It was on TV the other night. I recorded it. It was really good. Good fun. It's not dated that much either.
Well, I'm familiar with Wind in the Willows, which is a little bit different, shall we say?
No, Willow is basically about the tale of short people come good and they become very heroic, just like Lord of the Rings. And talking of Lord of the Rings, you'd have to say that was the major influence behind Games Workshop itself, I would say. And fighting, maybe I don't want to push it to Dungeons and Dragons or fighting fantasy, but definitely Games Workshop's releases were heavily influenced by Lord of the Rings.
But Lord of the Rings, it seems to be generally accepted that was kind of the first thing that combined all the different ideas, like dwarves that are grumpy and live in the mountains, and elves that are a bit stuck up and don't really mingle with everyone else, and humans that are just all over the place, and orcs and things like that. So you could say it had all these ideas that were kind of coming in, and then they all met there, and then they all spread out again from that point. So it looks like kind of hourglass of fantasy inspiration. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. I mean, all the races pre-Stormcast Eternals were kind of based around Lord of the Rings. You had elves, wood elves, humans, sort of knightly humans, as in the Bretonians. You had the orcs and goblins and trolls and ogres and undead.
Not so much beastmen, though.
Not so much beastmen, no, but you did have the madmen of the hills. You had the mad hillmen, so maybe, I don't know, that's a long shot. But what you don't get, really, and I think it could be a really nice faction idea, is gnomes and leprechauns. I thought that could be a really nice little army to have, a little army of gnomes.
I think the problem is they kind of took, because gnomes are supposed to be like even more inventive and kind of sneaky version of dwarves, aren't they?
Yeah, they're like illusionists.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether there'd really be a place for them. They seem almost unnecessary. Like everything they can do, someone else does better, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but they've got beards.
Yeah, but so do dwarves.
Yeah, dwarves can't do magic, so maybe we could have a few gnomes in a dwarf army. It could be dwarf wizards. It'd be kind of cool.
I don't know. Right, let's see what else people have been saying. Okay, Matt Stig says, probably my earliest memory was watching The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe cartoon movie in the late 80s.
Wow, cool.
I don't know whether I ever saw the cartoon of that. I definitely either read the book or maybe an audio cassette or something. I'm not sure whether I actually saw the film. I probably did.
Sean Maguire says, I think Neverending Story was my first exposure to fantasy. Sean, I'd keep that quiet if I were you. It's too late, though.
Yeah, there are a lot of films where you don't automatically think, oh yeah, that's fantasy, just because it's not like the Warhammer or the Lord of the Rings type world. Worlds where maybe things are a bit more normal and then there's a separate magical realm people go into. You don't automatically think, oh yeah, that's a fantasy film, because it's like crosses between the genres. Let's see.
Yeah.
Craig Shannon says Hawk the Slayer.
Hawk the Slayer. I love that film, man.
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, Andy, you got to watch that, my friend. It's a low-budget British film, but they got a kind of a big time-ish American actor to play the baddie. I can't remember his name. Oh, what's the baddie called in Hawk the Slayer? He's got a patch over his eye, and he kind of his eye glows in it, and yeah, it's wicked. It's got an elf bowman in it. It's got it won't say it's a giant, but a guy with a big double-handed hammer, and it's got the customary thief character. We've got Krull as well. That's pretty good. We've got Dragon Slayer. We've got Jason the Argonauts. Of course, all these are kind of kids films, right? When it comes to the daddy of fantasy films, from 1981, directed by the man John Borman. Jack Palance is the actor's name. Thank you, guys, for writing that. It's Jack Palance. But the film I'm talking about, guys, is the one and only Excalibur. The most goriest, bloodiest, mystical fantasy film that's not dated still out there. If you're a fan of Britannia, this is the film to watch, man. I've actually got a trailer all set up and ready to show everyone on screen share. I don't know how that would work with video. But
it's usually a little bit temperamental. And I'm not sure whether we'd get copyright claims against us either.
We'll leave that.
But what you can do is give me a link and I'll put it in the video description for people to go and watch later.
Well, just type in Excalibur on YouTube and you'll see a ton of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's got a very young. Do you know, my mind's gone blank tonight. It's got a very young.
The one night of the week that your mind needs to be alert.
Oh, I've got such a big day tomorrow as well. Yeah.
We'll sit patiently until you get your mind sorted.
He's in Taken. Your mind's gone. Now, come on, you know what I mean. Irish.
Oh, you mean Liam Neeson?
It's got a very young Liam Neeson in it, even. And yeah, all the other actors are not so well known, apart from the guy that becomes Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. So, Craig Shannon's also saying, he mentions Lord of the Rings, obviously. I think everyone's got some experience with that. And fighting fantasy, Death Trap Dungeon.
What a great, I love that. Death Trap Dungeon.
Yeah, I've tried looking into which of those books I actually read, because I did have at least 4 of them as a wee lad. But I haven't been able to find the actual cover art of the ones that I had. There seems to be 2 different covers, one ancient one when they first came out, and then a more recent updated one. But the ones I had, I'm pretty sure they were kind of green.
Yes, so you're right.
Maybe it would have been probably early 90s versions of them.
Or that, in fact, they may be even 2nd or 3rd edition ones, Andy. The original artwork ones for the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. I think that was a brownie one. But the first one I got was Death Trap Dungeon, and then I got Island of Lizard King. That was pretty cool. Of course, Lizard Men are featured in that.
I definitely had the Forest of Doom. I remember that clearly.
Ooh, yeah, man, that was sick. Then you had then suddenly it got you got into a future one, and it was set in space. and there was some alien race that you had to destroy. That was pretty cool. But they were wicked. And then the best ones in those series were Steve Jackson's sorcery books. Because it was Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson that did the first few Fighting Fantasy books. And Steve Jackson broke on his own and did this sorcery ones. It was a much more complex, page-based fantasy game, choice-based game. But they were really cool. You had a bit of magic going on in there and a bit of fighting, and they were a lot thicker. But you can actually get some of those on an app now. You can play those original games on your app. Then, of course, you had the Lone Wolf books, which were amazing as well. Did you ever read them, Andy?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
They're really cool as well. But, things have moved on. Back in them days, there's no phones. You just had books to keep you occupied,
Yep. If the internet hasn't been invented yet, turn to page 76 to see what happens. Oh, what do you know? You read a book all evening. Who would have predicted that outcome?
So, Andy, what, how did you make the jump from, enjoying fantasy books or fantasy films to then meeting people that also enjoyed that, and you could actually have a miniature-based game with someone, or did you see a shop, or how did it go from being a fan of fantasy to actually engaging in the hobby and creating stuff?
Well, I'm pretty sure the jump was when I was at my cousin's house one day and he had quite a lot of miniatures. A lot of them would have been Space Marines made out of deodorant bottles, Space Marine vehicles and that kind of thing. So that would have got me into that whole arena in the first place. And that was probably my first exposure to that. And then I didn't really look back from that point. But as far as what fantasy things I was into before then, it's tough to remember the exact dates of what order everything came in. But there's a lot of Disney films you'd describe as fantasy and that kind of thing, isn't there? Things like Sword in the Stone and all those old ones, they're definitely fantasy. They've got wizards and monsters and things like that in them. And one that I definitely remember that is definitely firmly in the fantasy genre is Flight of Dragons, which is an animated film. Apparently, it was direct to video when it came out. But if people haven't seen it, then they probably should. It's up there on the internet somewhere to be found. I found a copy of it and I rewatched it the other day. And the main problem I have with it now is that it seems like it should have been done over a much longer series of films. It seems like it needed 3 films because they're jumping to one big action scene and then there's a minute of downtime and then suddenly they're in another huge problem. So you don't really get a lot of character development between those high points in the story of the big action. So it seems like if they had a bigger budget and they were doing something that was going to be for a cinema release, they would have probably done multiple films to tell the story because they're really jumping ahead a lot to different things and you don't really get to know the characters that much. But any film that has James Earl Jones doing the voice of an evil wizard, can't go wrong with that, can you? So I'd advise everyone to watch that. And that's got, obviously, from the title you can tell it's got a lot of dragons in it, but it's got a lot of other kind of monsters in there as well, some of which are quite unique to that. And it tells an interesting story of can magic and science coexist, which is an interesting concept for a story, I think, because you've got some characters in there that believe that magic is a load of nonsense and that you can explain everything with science, trying to draw diagrams to explain how dragons can breathe fire and whatnot. And then you've got other characters saying, nope, it's just magic. We don't want any of your science nonsense. So it's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, man. We've had some honourable mentions in the comments here. Of course, Starship Traveller was the game book I was talking about. And yes, it was impossible to complete. I don't think I ever did it without cheating. In fact, I used to cheat in all those books. How could you not just, if you turn to the page and you die, you sort of kept your finger in the page previously, so in case you died, you kind of go back again.
Oh no, I didn't mean to go left, actually.
For sure, man. Of course, we've not mentioned the great Conan Barbarian, the original film. Not Conan the Destroyer. That was so bad, man. So bad, but
it had its moments.
Well, yeah, naff moments. Had a lot of those. But Conan the Barbarian, it's just got that element of weirdness to it, where just things aren't explained, but it makes it better. Whereas the new Conan, it's just not Arnold, is it?
Can you do any of the Conan music on your guitar?
Oh, I could learn it. Well, how does it go? Can you
I
hum
think
it?
you know the one that goes that one. If you can't do it now, then we could get it for next week.
Bit like that?
You got it. You got the right start, I think. I'll send you a link and you can practice it for next week, I think.
Something like that? No, ropey, but you got the
With a
melody.
bit of work, I think you can perfect it for next week, and people will be thrilled to hear that. I'm sure.
Yeah, wicked soundtrack. I mean, God, films just don't have good soundtracks anymore, do they? With epic music. It's like, maybe I'm getting old, man.
And when I'm going to listen to film soundtracks, generally it's all from the 80s.
I mean, I do tell a lie. If you've heard and seen the film, it's got Matthew McConaughey in it. My mind's gone blank, but really recent. Interstellar. It's a beautiful soundtrack. That it's very, very simple. Hans Zimmer. It's really nice. Great film as well. But that's the only film that's just brought me to tears with its beauty and wonder, you know. But I long for those days where, you know, your parents would like, you got to go to bed now. And then there was this fantasy film just starting on the TV. Or those Sunday afternoons when Sinbad was on, you know, Voyage of Sinbad and, you know, Jason the Argonauts or Clash of the Titans. Heady days.
Clash of the Titans and Jason the Argonauts were two of the earlier ones for me as well, especially the skeletons.
Oh, that's what a wicked scene. I actually did that, studied that scene in my degree and redid the music for it because we were doing movies and music. So
The best part of that scene is the part where they don't have any music, I think. Or there isn't much music. It's very minimalist at times, isn't it?
yeah, you got
And it builds the suspense.
you've got Princess Medea's dad, and he's got those claws, hasn't he? He's got all those tooths. Are they dragon tooth or tooth? He throws them on the ground, and it's all silent. And then suddenly you hear this sort of clattering sound as these skeletons are popping out the ground.
Yeah, are they the Hydra's teeth?
The Hydra's teeth. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
But those two films, occasionally bits of them blur into one in my mind because they're kind of similar, aren't they? Even though one of them was like way before the other. I think there's like 20 years difference between them, isn't there? Clash of the Titans and Jason and the Argonauts.
Ooh. I don't know what you talking. I'm talking about the original Clash of the Titans, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure actually. Was it?
Is it
that old?
Jason and the Argonauts? Wasn't that 60s and then Clash of the Titans, or was that one of them was late 60s, one of them early 80s, I think.
Well, Ray Harryhausen, who did the animation, he'd been doing it like for 40 or 50 years. Been doing it years. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was that big a time gap.
Yeah, Medusa was another great monster in those.
One thing I've noticed about a lot of those films is they didn't have any massive stars in them. It wasn't until Conan that a megastar came out of one of those films. I mean, the only one I can think of is maybe Tom Baker in one of the Sinbad films. He plays like the baddie wizard, and every time he uses his like blood magic, he grows older until like he's an old man. But he's trying to find the fountain of youth. You know, so
there is something to be said though for having a film that doesn't have recognizable stars in it.
oh, absolutely.
If you don't know who they are, you can sometimes get drawn into the story more because you only associate them with that one character they're playing right then. So you don't have these preconceived ideas.
Even Star Wars was like that to an extent. Of course, it made Harrison Ford a superstar, but not so much the other guys. You know, and when they rebooted Star Wars, kind of Hayden Christensen?
Oh God, no.
Kind of got cast in things for a little while just because he had been the star in Star Wars, but no one was really convinced. You know.
He was not a star in Star Wars by any means.
No
Stretch of the imagination.
No, I tell you, have you seen the new Star Wars trailer? It looks good to me.
I have. It's looking good so far, but trailers can be misleading.
Of course.
Bazooka J Rambo says, "Chitty chitty bang bang." Okay, we're getting into a territory I'm not sure we want to stray too far into now. I understand there is, of course, a magical element to those kind of films, but not quite mature enough for us, are they? If they don't have the potential of people's heads being cut off. Actually, someone was asking me what year Flight of Dragons was, and was it 1983? And I think it probably was, because I would have been watching it probably late 80s, either rented from a video shop or recorded from the TV onto a good old VHS.
I miss renting stuff from shops, man. It's just going in there and just browsing away, and I miss that. It's kind of like, I don't know, Netflix is good, you know? You just
Well, there's nothing that exists that you don't have instant access to nowadays. You can't walk into a shop now and say, "Ooh, what's that? I've never heard of that film." Because you've heard of everything now, haven't you?
Yeah, people's lives are like that now, aren't they? You can just look it up. I mean, you know, being a teacher at school, like people just instantly, if the kids take a shine to a teacher, they're all over the internet trying to find out stuff about them. You know what I mean?
Have they not found this show yet?
Oh, thank God they haven't. Sir, you do a little podcast with that guy who wears orange and you talk about models. I mean, that's the end of my career right there, isn't it?
I don't know. It could bump you up to the next level. If they don't idolize you already, I'm sure they would after hearing about this show.
What, to demi-geek?
Sebastian Blue is talking about D&D the cartoon.
Yeah, well, all right. Yeah, it was all right.
It was a bit on the cheese side, wasn't it?
They never actually made it out of the dungeon, did they?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember. YouTube Newbie thinks it was amazing, though.
Yeah, I mean, if I was them guys, after the first few episodes of that, I'd like kill that dungeon master. You'd find a much quicker escape out of there than just doing what he said. He just led them on a wild goose chase, didn't he?
Oh, Bazooka J. Rambo, he says Red Sonja. Let's not talk about that one.
Now, come on, Red Sonja's all right. With the little Kung Fu Emperor guy. He's great, man. And he's got that servant. He keeps like beating the servant up, and he's a man. And this little kid's just
you loved Red Sonja, but no love for Conan the Destroyer.
Oh man, Conan the Destroyer was awful. The effects were. It's basically a quarter of a film. When the film ends, you're like, all right, okay, now what? That was just a precursor to something bigger. But no, it's the end. Like they kill the sorcerer guy so easily at the end. It's like, and then of course it's the classic. Everything blows up and all the mountain collapses that we've seen in countless films since then. It's so boring. Why does everything have to blow up at the end?
It doesn't quite have the same touch as cutting off the evil Snake Master's head and kicking it down the stairs, does it? No,
you had empathy with Conan the Barbarian. You had no empathy in the second one. You know, it was more about, you know, can you see Grace Jones's flange when she jumps off the horse?
God.
Sorry, but that's the only thing people seem to talk about, right? The Conan, it's just like all this bad stuff happened to him, and the baddie guy was so bad in a good way. You know, he was so evil. James Earl Jones, this sort of commanding guy that's so regal. It was fantastic.
Have you ever watched any documentaries or anything about that film and what they were going for with his look? Because he's got a really strange look, hasn't he? Because obviously he's got a very dark complexion, but they gave him straight hair, whereas normally people with skin that dark, they have it's kind of fluffier kind of hair, isn't it? And they gave him contact lenses to change the color of his eyes as well. They wanted him to look like some kind of race of people that didn't actually exist.
It's basically a black guy with a mullet. But you know, the only scene in that film that kind of looks dated really a lot now is when he turns into a snake. Yeah, that scene looks a bit dated, you have to admit, but that James Earl Jones's thugs in that film were fantastic. You know, they hardly had any lines, but there was that guy with the massive double-handed. He was like Thrud the Barbarian, wasn't he? He had him and a massive double-handed hammer, and he gets a really grisly death at the hands of Conan.
And you know the scene where Conan's out there just hanging up, and there's a vulture on him.
Oh, it's mega.
And he bites its neck. You know they used a real dead vulture for that.
Really?
That was the only way to make it look realistic. So he had to actually dig his teeth into a dead vulture's neck.
Ah.
There's a lot of stories about that film, like when the dogs are chasing him in that one bit. If you look at the outtakes, you'll see one bit where he doesn't quite make it up onto the rocks and the dogs actually catch him. They've got all trainers on hand, though, so he doesn't get mauled or anything. But you imagine that'd be pretty scary when you've got live dogs chasing after you.
Brilliant. It's almost like that film was directed by Italian spaghetti western directors, wasn't it? It had that epic feel to it. And that weirdness. But speaking of magic, I predict that a new faction that they're going to bring out in Age of Sigmar will be purely wizards. That's my fact. That's my prediction. Purely magic-based army. You know, I'm not talking demons. I'm talking something else, something ethereal. Could be quite interesting.
You
know,
we've got someone sticking up for Conan the Destroyer here. Stu Gibson, he says, one redeeming quality was that they used an H.P. Lovecraft creation as the main bad guy monster, the Dagoth Dagon. That would be the guy with the big horn, wouldn't it?
Okay.
That monster was actually played by Andre the Giant, I think.
Love Andre the Giant. Oh my God, have you seen The Prince's Bride? What a great film.
I haven't, but everybody loves it, apparently.
Everyone loves it. It's just wicked film. Yeah, you can't deny that's a lovely film, man. That's got Robin Wright Penn in it as well. She later married Sean Penn. She's a big movie star now still.
What's the first thing you can think of in your fantasy memories then? The absolute first exposure you had?
Probably my dad reading me The Sword and the Stone book at bedtime. Actually, no, I'd have to go back even further. When I was at primary school, we had a music teacher called Mr. Kirby, and he was blind, properly blind. He with a stick and everything. But he knew The Hobbit off by heart. So at lunchtimes, we'd go into the library with him, and he'd recite The Hobbit. And he'd do these wicked characterizations of Gollum and stuff. And, you know, looking back, we were really cruel. We used to be throwing bits of paper at each other, and of course he wouldn't notice because he's blind. But what a lovely guy! He actually died. He died while I was still at school. But he was amazing, and just, you know, the fact that as a kid, acknowledging that somebody had learned this novel off by heart, I thought this must be a pretty special world to get into. And then my friend, whose name is Darius, he got into Dungeons and Dragons, and he also had to fight. He had the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, which I loved. But he was a dungeon master, and we had a little role play game. And I remember he said, "All right, so you're a human warrior, and I was trapped in this pit, all right." And he said, "The pit's full of snakes, and these snakes are coming at you. What weapon are you going to use?" And I had a choice between a sword and a hammer. But for some reason, I chose a hammer, which is probably the worst weapon to use against something like thin and just sliding around. And yeah, that was my first memory. A bit random, yeah, I know, but that was my first memory.
Well then.
I can see you're really engaged in that, Andy.
Looking at the comments again, Gloomdready Gaming, I've read The Hobbit 12 times, all versions, German and English. That's some dedication if you're reading a novel in multiple languages, isn't it? A couple of people shouting out Beastmaster.
Yeah, I remember that. The cover artwork to those movies was dead cool. You know, they had, I think the artist's name might have been a guy called Boris Vallejo. Maybe that's where they get Vallejo paints from. But this guy used to paint fantasy scenes, and they'd have he'd paint barbarians and scantily clad women.
There are an awful lot of scantily clad women strewn about the history of fantasy films, aren't there?
Yeah.
Particularly the 80s, where suddenly it seemed like mainstream films were just allowed to suddenly have nudity and lots of gore in them overnight almost.
They're usually sort of helpless maidens, you know, wearing little scrags of fur tied up, and some barbarian man would chop down the chains and release her, and then make violent, passionate love to her.
Yeah, the women are a bit more empowered nowadays in cinema, it has to be said.
Yeah.
Let's see, we've got Mr. MC1 Gamer in the chat.
MC1 Gamer. A tremendous amount of damage.
Yeah, untold damage.
Untold damage. Love your MC1.
Yeah, he's been slacking on his Age of Sigmar analysis, I think, lately.
Well, no, because he's waiting for people to come back for seconds. And he's asked me, and I've just been so busy, Mitch, I've not had time to get around to it, man. I will, though.
In terms of Age of Sigmar gaming, I'm still waiting for about 3 local people to finish painting their armies so I can get some games in. But I should be getting a game in this month. Because somebody commented on one of my Kings of War battle reports and said, hey, why aren't you playing Age of Sigmar? So it's gone the opposite now. People used to comment on the Age of Sigmar stuff saying, why aren't you playing Kings of War? So whatever you're not putting videos up for that week, those people are going to jump on you. But should be battle reports coming soon, guys. Don't panic. And with any luck, with it being about to be my birthday very, very soon, then I'm expecting to get plenty of Sigmarites.
Is that a hint?
Well, I know for a fact that I'm going to get some, definitely, because I put in a special request with various family members who never have any idea what to get me. So
I'm that old, Andy, that I don't tell people it's my birthday anymore. You know?
Well, with everyone on social media now, you don't have to tell anyone when your birthday is because they can just see it right there all the time.
Yeah, I come off Facebook at that point. Come off Facebook for a few days. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just...
Oh, we've got a shout out for another film here. Stu Gibson. Anyone remember Dragonheart from about 96? Sean Connery as the ever distinguished voice of the dragon. I remember that. I don't know whether I saw the whole thing. I do remember it existing, though.
That's pretty good, man.
With that.
Yeah, it's all right. I was going to say something, Andy. You know, we've been criticising competitive gamers a lot, but you know, recently I've actually been missing competitive gamers because of the content, the amount of content they used to bring out. I mean, with Warhammer Fantasy, you've got these competitive gamers that will be putting out 1 or 2 reports every week. You know what I mean? And because we're sort of new to Sigmar, and maybe players are few and far between and just getting established, there's not that much consistent Sigmar content
a lot of people are so new to it, they're kind of hesitant to dip their toe into the pool of giving anyone tactical advice. Obviously, I've gone in there right up to my left thigh into the pool, giving people tactical advice and telling them that Age of Sigmar is a game that actually contains tactics. But some people are a little bit hesitant. I think as time goes on, it'll grow, and there are smaller channels out there that are covering it that could probably use the attention. I might actually do a video on other channels that do quality Age of Sigmar content that you probably haven't heard of, so not the big ones. Just the smaller ones that are sailing under the radar, so people like you that think maybe there's a lack of content, you probably just haven't heard of these people yet because they haven't floated onto your radar yet. But there are some of them out there.
That'd be great, Andy. I mean, what I'm looking for is games that are battle reports that are between 5 and 10 minutes long, maximum 20 minutes, all right, and really great quality pictures and great quality miniatures. That's what I like to see. I'm not so keen on the ones that have the live action and they say, right, end of turn 1, blah, 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 blah. That killed that and that shot that, right, and this is turn 2. And
unless it's mine when I weave the wonderful narrative in there.
Yeah, that's fine. I like that. I like when you do that. But when people are at a competition or something and you hear all this background noise, it's dead confusing. I'm not so keen on that. I like a bit of reflection in battle reports as well. It always makes the narrators seem a lot more tactical than they actually are. They justify everything that they do. When you actually play the game, you just, you know, I'm going to move that there. All right, yeah, he'll shoot at that guy. That's how it's is in reality, in my opinion.
Have you been up to anything hobby-wise this week?
Yeah, I got all my Dark Elves out, and I rebased all my Witch Elves, and I've painted 7 out of 10 of them now, and I've gone for the Pallid Witch flesh look with the red tattoos on their faces, and they are looking fantastic. And I tell you something, when you've got these models that don't rank up well because they've got very dynamic poses, when they're on round bases, 1, they don't fall over anymore, all right, and 2, they just look so much better, you know. But I've got my Blackguard. I've got about 18 Blackguard, and they look really good when they're actually ranked up on square bases. So I've got a mixture. I've got some Dark Riders I've got to paint. I've done a Scourge Runner Chariot, and I'm really proud of that paint job. And I was doing that, and then I looked at my Ogre box, and I realised there's only 4 Ogre models left to paint. So I thought I couldn't resist that temptation. So I've got those out, and I've got this Cyborg Miniatures ogre, and I'm painting him like Baron Samedi from Live and Let Die. So I'm painting him as Afro-Caribbean, which I've never tried before. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right, so he's got like a white top hat and white trousers, and he's going to be like an alternative ogre butcher. All right.
It's interesting, actually. I don't think I've seen anyone paint ogres like that before.
Yeah, it's just like a one-off. I'll try and put something. Trying to find like a piece of paper or something I can put behind it to make it look a bit better on screen. Yeah, like that. That might work.
I think we can just about make it out. He's got some skulls hanging around his neck.
Yeah, he's got like a giant snake that's going to hang around his neck, and he's also holding up a human that's about to be sacrificed. So, you know, when you get to that point in your army, right, where you only got a few models left, you can really start to have some fun. You know, you can really start to think about rebasing your models and the aesthetic of it. I've got an Afro ogre as well, which I'll show you him. I think you've seen him already, haven't you, Andy? But this is my ogre with an afro.
That's the one that's made out of, is it flock?
Yeah. Yeah. He's almost there. And then I've got, of course, the most famous mercenary ogre. I've forgotten his name. In Finecast.
Now, he is a spiky beast, isn't he?
Yeah, what's his name?
That's what the slaughter priest should have on his back, something like that.
Yeah, it's like a tooth totem. I've got him, and I'm also, the last of all, I'm painting an ogre gorger, all right? And these are kind of ugly-looking models, I'd have to say. And I started painting him, and then I realised you get an alternative head. So I looked at Steve Pezzapoo's models, and I decided to pinch one of his ideas, and I stuck both heads on the body to give it a two-headed ogre look.
Now, you say his ideas, but I did actually inspire him to do that.
Did you?
I told him to make his giant into an Etin.
Well, that's a great idea, that. So it's an Etin Gorger now. I've got to finish painting it, but, you know, I've got the end in sight with that army. And, yeah.
You know what I've been doing? Not a whole lot. I painted some Belgian boots. So you can see their boots are nice and black now. And the bases are painted brown around the edges. That's all I've done on them in the last week because I've been extremely busy. But I'm hoping to get that batch of bolt action stuff finished before my birthday so I can get on with the Stormcast stuff that I'm inevitably going to get. And even if I don't, I'd just buy some anyway because I need some more, obviously. And one thing I forgot to talk about last week, a couple of weeks ago, I actually attended a Relics tournament and won, playing a faction for the first time ever.
What faction was that?
That was Orknar.
What they look like?
Kind of the big, brutish, kind of rock-looking creatures in Relics.
That's cool, man.
That's the first time I'd ever played them, and I completely smushed a couple of armies off the table entirely.
What was your prize?
The prize is a T-shirt, which I haven't got yet, and a lovely certificate, which is in my drawer. I haven't found anywhere to put my certificates on the wall yet. I was hesitant to put them up because my previous certificate said second place, third place.
Right.
I think it's all right if you've got a first place alongside them, but if you've just got an entire wall of second place certificates, what does that say about you?
An almost ran.
Yeah, I think it's going to be all right. Once I've got the first place, I can put the other ones next to it.
I think you should put that first place award right behind you, and you should hang it up.
Maybe I will. But I think I'm going to do a video on that tournament. I did take a few pictures on my phone so people can take my tactical insight, anyone that's interested in Relics, which I'm sure everyone is because it's a lovely skirmish-based stitch punk fantasy game.
Brilliant. I've been playing some computer games. I've been playing XCOM, Enemy Unknown, and I've got addicted to it really quickly. And yeah, there's a new one coming out in February. But yeah, it's pretty easy to play. Sort of and the way it's like a turn-based strategy, future fighting aliens game. But when I was playing it, I think it's very similar to the Mordheim game, where it's turn-based, and you know, you move your soldiers, and then you've got a firing option, and you can have ones that are a bit sneaky and they're waiting in ambush. So this might lead me to play the Mordheim game, so I'm looking forward to.
Now, on the subject of computer games, Mr. Rem, if you're able to figure out in the cogs of your mind what I might be talking about, then I would ask that you don't say anything.
Okay.
But there will be something computer game related coming up that's very hot and sizzling straight off the presses on my channel very soon. So keep your eyes peeled, keep your ear to the ground, and keep your nose to the grindstone.
Can I just say, Andy, I won't give anything away, but it's awesome. I mean, the thing that you've been involved with, which I'm not
the thing that you suspect I've been involved in, which I've been unable to confirm or deny.
I'd love to know what that was all about, because from what I know about it already, it just looks like, oh man, I can't wait for it to come out.
And Sliggy CZ says XCOM is addictive.
Yeah.
What else have we got here? We've got a couple of other viewers. We've got Sebastian Blau. I assume that's how you pronounce it. Don't know if there's anyone else whose name we haven't said yet. If anyone hasn't got a shout out, then let us know, because we do like to interact and mingle with all the little people out there. Like little MC1 Gamer, for example, who doesn't have a lot of subscribers, honestly. It's just a small little channel. Let's see. Gloomdready Gaming. No one ever has professional backholdy paper on live streams. That is true. People are always trying to hold up miniatures on all these live shows, and they're always looking around for something to put behind it. They use their hand a lot of the time, which doesn't work.
It always looks so bad, man. I try to get a better webcam, you know, but for some reason I put it into my PC, and then I've gone into the settings and tried to get it to recognize it. It's not worked, and then I've tried it on my Mac, and that's not working. So I'm really sorry, guys. You're not getting to see the full glory of Remington Steele's stunning looks here.
Well, next week we can get the full glory of some of your miniatures in picture form, I think, and you can be practicing that music from Conan as well.
Okay, man. All right, I'm going to wrap it up now, Andy. I'm so bullish, man. I got the day from hell coming up tomorrow.
You got a full day of sizzling whatever action you have during the day that isn't miniatures related, but you've got that coming up. I've got quite a busy day coming up tomorrow as well. So it's time to wrap up, folks. It's been an emotional roller coaster, and I think Mr. Rem is going to start strumming away and possibly give us a nice little outro song.
That's not what we agreed, Andy. I think you'll find you were going to sing a last little one of your fabulous odes. What about one to the end of this Sigmar release schedule? You know, because it's looming up, isn't it? We've seen the end.
Only a few weeks left. We've got to get the KHORNE book first, haven't we?
Oh, KHORNE book, and maybe a KHORNE super baddie coming, and then there's possibly, guys, there's going to be nothing until maybe like Christmassy time, and then who knows what we'll see. Maybe they'll just relaunch old stuff, but with round bases. I don't know. You know, I guess they've got to do that, haven't they, before we see anything brand new.
People are chanting for me to sing, apparently.
Yeah, man.
In the chat. So if anyone else has got any last-second comments they want to get in there, do so now. And when the show is over, of course, as always, refresh the page and leave comments in the permanent comment section so they stay there forever, so everyone can see what an amazing episode it was, so they stick around and watch the whole thing because of your kind words directed at us. Because remember, anything that you're commenting there right now will disappear. To be gone forever, just drifting away through time, never to be seen again. So make sure you leave permanent comments. Cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I love reading all the comments, and I try to like all the ones I can and comment back. So guys, thanks so much for watching and getting involved with the show. You know, hopefully next week I'll have a bit more energy, and we'll have some more stuff to talk about, man. Definitely get some photos of my miniatures I've been painting, and hopefully Andy will be able to talk about his thing that he can't talk about just yet.
Yeah, and also if you've got any discussion topics you'd like to pitch to us, then leave them in the permanent comments as well. Maybe one of those will be selected. We'll have a lengthy debate on it. unless it's something very silly like My Little Pony, in which case, nope. Let's just have a last look at the comments. Gloomdreader Gaming, hope the song is not as disturbing as the last one. I can assure you it probably will be, but we shall see. So I'm going to bring up the old logo of the show again. And here we go. The end draws near. Dark at the end of the tunnel. There's nothing to fear as the releases come out the funnel. Stormcast and KHORNE, whatever shall come next. I just hope the KHORNE warriors are wearing trousers, pants, or kicks. Feasting on blood is what they do best. Stormcast came down to save all the rest. We haven't quite succeeded yet, it has to be said. Lots of humans lying there with no skulls because they're dead. They've had them chopped and hacked by KHORNE into little pieces of flesh. GW, they really want you to part with your cash. The rhyming becomes more shoddy as the song draws to a close. Kindly step into your garden and pick up a length of hose. Hose down yourself because this episode was so sizzling and I don't have anything to rhyme with that, so it's time to hit the stop